Hi, welcome to Sinister Cinema. Today I'm going to be reviewing Blair Witch Project. I'm so sorry. I mean, seriously, I can't imagine how many more like scenes are iconic off of a total fuck up. Like, that is a total fuck up. She didn't realize the camera was zoomed in when she filmed that scene, and now it's probably, you know, it's one of the most infamous scenes in horror history. That's wild to me. That's so cool that ended up working out, because I'm sure they checked that footage, like, and I'm sure she did too, like, oh fuck, you know, because she's giving a very good performance in that moment, and she's truly scared, and you can't recapture that kind of stuff. Trust me, I've recorded fucking reviews nowhere near this good. Don't tell me, I'm not trying to pretend that I'm, you know, Heather Donahue in Blair Witch Project, but I've recorded reviews that I loved and then found out that there was no audio. At least she had audio. It was just zoomed into him. But anyways, let's talk about it, guys. It is time to review the Blair Witch Project series, the Blair Witch series. So we're going to start with the classic. This is a film, you know, there's a lot of people who don't like it, and, you know, at the time saw this, they shit all over it because it was like, became that cool movie to hate. Every generation, every like year, there's another cool movie to hate, in general and in the horror community. And this was kind of like both that year. It was just that movie to everyone. It was just like, oh, it wasn't scary, it wasn't this and that. Now, I've mentioned this in the past, I think, but I know a lot of people will shit on anyone who thought this was real, and they're like, oh, what a dummy, what an idiot. Like, I'm not going to speak to whether you are an idiot for believing in this. I don't really care, honestly. But could you imagine, like, sitting down and thinking this was real? It would be terrifying to watch. It really would. And a lot of people, like, I can't remember what the numbers, the percentage of people who came out of the theater who thought it was real, but it was a lot. It was like 40%, or I can't remember what the numbers were, but it was crazy high. And it, like, wow, no wonder it scared people. People were having panic attacks in the fucking theater, having to walk out and all sorts of shit. So yeah. And I don't know, like, you can't really explain the phenomena of this film unless you lived it. I remember I was going, I've told this story on the channel a couple times, so I apologize to anyone who's heard it a bunch. But I was going to like American Pie 1 or 2. I'm going to have to remember what time. So I need to look that up so I can figure that out. 1999, is that American Pie 1? I don't know. But anyway, went to go see it, and I saw a sandwich board right outside the Block of Orange in LA, and it said that whole, you know, in 1994, 3 kids went into the Burkittsville woods, blah, blah, blah. A year later, the footage was found. And I just thought it was like a personal screening, because that's what it was. It was only playing in New York, and it was playing in Orange, and that was it. And I was like, holy shit, I nudged my friends, because I've always been the horror guy. And I have fucking, and so I was like, oh, you gotta see this. And then before the movie, they like came in and promoted it. They like did a best scream. Everyone in the audience like gave their best scream, and they gave out shirts and everything. And then like we went and saw it, and it was like, it was a cool movie, and I liked it, but I had to leave the movie theater like 4 times because I kept getting sick. The motion was killing me. And at first I was kind of like, is this real? Like, because it wasn't big yet. It was just, I thought it was just a showing of this and that. But once, like, I don't remember what part I was like, yeah, this probably isn't real. I'm like, yeah. And then at like very end, obviously spoilers, Mike standing in the corner and all that, I was like, oh, no way. 100%, this is not real, for sure. And then it blew up, like 2 weeks later, a month later, something like that, really quick after, and it just exploded all over the fucking, you know, the scene. Like, everybody was talking about this movie. This was such a big deal when it came out. Like, as I said, if you weren't around at this time and you didn't find it, like, this was the horror movie of horror movies. This was such a big deal. So anyway, I just wanted you to tell you just kind of like my memory of it. And I really liked it. So I went out and like got, you know, I got all the Blair Witch File books right here. This motherfucker right here. This Night Shifter by, right here. Book 7 was so hard for me to find. But I bought all of these brand new. But the Night Shift, that was the one that was just sold out everywhere. And I finally had to get it off eBay. It was so hard to find. I hate it because it doesn't match. Doesn't match the other ones. Ugh, that annoys me. But it was literally the only one I could find that was even a decent price to complete the collection. I also got the Blair Witch video games from a Big Lots for $10 back in the day when they came out. All 3 of them together in one pack. I was so excited. These games are creepy, man. They're old and a little outdated now, but the atmosphere of these are really cool. It's set in like the 1700s or something, or 1700s. With Ellie Kedward, it's like it's all sorts of stuff. You got this like 1940s for this one, like Rustin Parr stuff, and then it goes back in time to like Ellie Kedward stuff, I think, in this one. Yeah, there you go. And this one's about the Coffin Rock murders. Like, it's like the whole story, the mythos. Cool shit, man. Really cool video games, and a lot of people didn't play these, so those are fun. I also did some reviews for the comic books on here, and I also have all the trading cards. Yes, there was trading cards, and I bought a whole box of them, so I opened them all up, and I had like almost every single one of them. I think I was only missing a couple of them, but yeah, I was really into this movie at the time. I just really enjoyed it, and so let's get into the movie itself. 7 fucking minutes before we even start to talk about the film. Jesus Christ, man. I try to talk fast. I really do, and it just somehow eats time. I don't get it. So we got Heather, we got Mike, and we got Josh. Josh! How many Heather Donahues does it take to screw in a light bulb? Just one! All right, so Heather is just meeting Mike for the very first time. And to keep in mind that it's hard because I want to talk about both sides of this. I want to talk about the actual filming of it, and I want to talk about the in-universe talk as well, like inside the movie, like if this was real or whatever, or if it's just a movie, which it is. I want to talk about that side of it, and I also want to talk about like the making of. It's hard because they're both such interesting stories in themselves. But inside the movie, Heather and they're probably just meeting for the first time ever as well, like in real life too. But none of them know each other. So let's try to stick in the movie itself for now. These characters don't know each other, and they're going out into the woods, and they're filming this documentary, and they're going around, they're interviewing everybody, and they bring these 2 cameras. One's shooting in black and white. It's kind of their money shot. It's what they're putting the real footage in for the film, and then they're just kind of doing some B-roll with the I guess they're just documenting their journey as they do it. I don't know if they were trying to blend the 2 together or not, but it's there to pick that stuff up. But whatever they filmed for the actual film, it seems to all be in the black and white. So that's what they were trying to do the film in. And then they're in Burkittsville, which was, used to be Blair, but they changed the name of the town. And I had mentioned before the Rustin Parr line, like, I'm finally finished, which you hear a lot throughout, like, the comics and the sequels and all sorts of things. So Rustin Parr becomes a big character in this as well, outside of, like, Ellie Kedward, the Blair Witch, which it is argued that the Blair Witch isn't actually Ellie Kedward. In fact, like, I'll talk about that in the Blair Witch breakdown, but as far as like the expanded mythos of this, Ellie Kedward is really just kind of a victim of like the woods. The woods are the Blair Witch themselves. Let's see. So Rustin Parr took 7 kids over to his house and killed them 2 by 2, which doesn't really make any sense because they're like, he takes them down in 2s and makes one face into the corner while he kills the other one, and then grabs the other one out of the corner and kills him. And it's like, what do you do with the last one? Like, why take them 2 by 2 when, like, that's silly to me. Like, that's an odd number. You should have chose 6 or 8. I mean, you're making it up. So if you're going to take them down by 2s, why is it an odd number? And so they go and they're interviewing everybody, and they go and they interview this Mary Brown lady who looks like the Blair Witch. I mean, I remember when I saw this in the theater, and I was like, okay, if this is a movie, that's probably going to be the witch at the end of the movie. And she's the town crazy, so she's like the crazy Ralph or whatever, like, or no, she's not the crazy Ralph, I'm sorry. But she's the town crazy. Then the crazy Ralph character is the fisherman who's like, damn fool kids will never learn or whatever, which is kind of the typical line of any of those, you know, the guy that knows and is like trying to ward them off, whatever you want to call that guy. But Mary says that the witch, which she saw, is covered in fur, and that she has an odd face. So her whole body is covered in fur. Interesting. She probably saw a bear. And I do like the two fishermen guys. I don't know, their banter back and forth, and the one guy's like a believer and the other guy's like horse shit. I'm the guy who's like, bullshit, this is garbage. I don't know, I liked their banter a lot. Then we move over to them doing Coffin Rock, and Coffin Rock is the site where the 5 men were carved up, their innards were pulled out, and their heads were placed together to form a pentagram. They went to go back to town to get everyone to come back. When they got back, only a couple hours later, all the bodies had disappeared. No sign of anything, except for there was like vultures or something flying around, and that they could smell the death. But somebody came and took all of the bodies away untraceably. I like all of the urban legends that center their story kind of getting in your head, because this film really had to bank on filling in the blanks, you know, like this whole setup at the beginning, telling all these stories is so important. If it was just them out in the woods getting fucked with, it wouldn't have worked. Like, you had to start putting things into people's minds. You had to tell the Rustin Parr story. You had to tell them, you know, the Mary Brown story. You had to have all the interviews. You had to have the fisherman. You had to have, it starts fucking with your head. It's like throwing different ideas into your head, so your mind starts to go, okay, like now I'm getting a grasp on what is out there supposedly. And because they're never going to actually show anything in the film, your brain will start to fill in those blanks, and they'll put in the information that you were given earlier in the movie. So that was smart and a great decision by Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick. Now, those guys are fucking geniuses. The fact that they played this off like it was a real thing, and that they had the actors like actually hide out for a while so that no one would know they were alive. They weren't allowed to go on any interviews. So that, and I think it kind of, it didn't backfire because they made enough money, so it didn't really matter, and it's kind of a classic now. But at the time, they, like, a lot of people were pissed off because they felt duped. Like, they were like, oh my God, I'm sitting here thinking these people really disappeared. You got me all invested, and this and that. And they don't want to feel gullible. If they feel gullible, they'll feel stupid, and nobody likes to feel stupid. Like, I get that, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I've always been under that mind. Like, when people are like, oh, it's found footage, real stuff. Like, I got in an argument with somebody in a group that I'm in that the Poughkeepsie tapes was real. And I was like, they don't fucking show us open investigation murder evidence. Like, that doesn't happen. There's your first clue right there. They're not going to show you that shit. They're not going to release it. Like, don't you think the families would have a problem with their loved ones up on screen being murdered in front of the whole world for entertainment? Like, they don't sell tickets to that shit. The best case scenario, I don't know how to say that, but like the only way that you would see that stuff, I guess is what I would say, is if it was like on some kind of investigatory show or something, like not a Discovery Channel, but Forensics ID or whatever. What channels those on, those kinds of shows, those real shows. They more do dramatizations, is that how you say that? Over actual footage, because that shit gets really disturbing. And as I said, I think families, I wouldn't want, like, if my kids were killed or if a loved one was killed, I wouldn't want their fucking footage played for people. Oh my God, hell no. Yeah, I'll just, here, watch my kid die. I'll sign off on that for a couple bucks. No, thank you. Anyway. And where am I? Oh yeah, they also had crude writing on their faces, the Men at Coffin Rock, which kind of plays into Book of Shadows, which I cannot wait to get to Book of Shadows. I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, that's because he hates it. No, it isn't. It's because I love it. Yep, I love it. We'll get to that though. Yep. If you watch my channel enough, not only do you know that, but you shouldn't be surprised because I like some films that everyone hates. So, you know, typical for me. Anyway, so they go to sleep and Josh reports that he heard cackling in the night. Yeah, fucking right. How convenient is that? The friendship and kind of that like camaraderie between Josh and Mike and Heather, like I really like it. I think that it's really well done. I feel like it's very genuine. So I know that this entire film was ad-libbed and that, you know, Heather, Josh, and Mike had no idea what was going to happen. They were just kind of sat them down and gave them a very general idea of like what they needed to do and where like their characters were and blah, blah, blah. And like everything else was them. And they came in the night to fuck with them. And so they didn't know what was going to happen. Like when they started banging on the tents or when they were out there throwing rocks or like they never knew anything was going to happen. So they were just kind of like thrown through this gauntlet for days on end out in the freaking woods. And then being filmed, which, I mean, I don't know how it went down, honestly, but I'd be fucking scared because this is some low budget, like $6,000 movie with a bunch of people you probably don't even know. You're out in the woods with them and they're like, oh yeah, we're making a film. And it's not like a legit film crew. It's like these random people who are filmmakers out there and who knows, maybe they're going to fucking kill you. Maybe they're like, they just get you to go out there saying it's going to be in a film and you're out there and your mind's going to start fucking playing tricks on you. I mean, I'm sure that they had panic attacks. I'm sure a lot of their fear was genuine, which, I mean, it makes for great entertainment, but I mean, poor them, obviously. I'd be fucking bummed. That sucks for them, but I think that their performances are great. I know there's some people, I always point this out, I don't even know why I bother, but there's some people who think their performances are lame or whatever, but no fucking way. I mean, Heather is terrified in this movie. You can see it. She does not get enough credit as like the final girl. How often do you ever see somebody be like, oh, my favorite final girl is Heather Donahue? I've never seen that written ever. But she's a great actress. She's fucking awesome in this movie. And so is Mike and so is Josh. I think they all do excellent jobs. And the whole reason that Josh disappeared is because he wanted to go home. Like his girlfriend was pissed off at him or something and he wanted to go. So they just like wrote his character out by getting him stolen, which I think is such a great moment in the movie. Like they come out and they find his teeth and all that. Or they don't find, Heather finds it. Anyway, we'll get to that. Shit. Fuck, my back hurts. Let's see. So yeah, like they then go out and they're looking for the graveyard and they find it and there's 7 rock formations out there. Some are up in the trees, some are down below, and that's supposed to, you know, signify or whatever the 7 kids that were killed by Russ and Parr. And so that kind of plays in later in the movie. But then, like, they're starting to get lost. And this is where the very believable parts of this movie come into play for me, because I hate the idea of camping. I hate the idea of being out in nature like that. I hate all that shit. So being out in the woods with a bunch of people I really don't know that well, having to trust them, because you got to remember, Mike does not know anything. He says he signed up for a scouted mission, that he thought this was going to be super quick, super simple, whatever, and that's what he signed up for. And he has to bank off of Heather and Josh, who he barely knows, to put their lives in his hands by saying they know what they're doing, that they can read this map, that they know where they're going, and they're constantly getting lost and they're walking in circles, and he's freaking the fuck out. Now, do I think it's okay that he kicked the map into the little creek or whatever? No, but at the same time, like, I get it. Like, they're all frustrated. They're all freaking out. And being lost in the woods, dying of exposure because you just get lost, God, it's one of the most, like, that's one of my biggest fears too. Like, just thinking about that freaks me the fuck out. Like, I hate Like, I hate being lost, even for a minute. Like, not knowing, like, not being able to get your bearings is a horrible feeling, man. Ugh. Anyway, so, but just that, it really, like, I like the way that this film is edited together. I don't know how it was on the set, but it really does have a realistic breakdown with them. Because it's not just like it goes like bad. Like, it's not like it's good and then it starts to get worse. No, it's more realistic. It's like there's peaks and valleys. Like, they're getting mad at each other, then they kind of like apologize and make up a little bit, and then they're joking around, then they, you know, get mad at each other again, and then they're kind of joking around, then they get mad at each other, and then they're really scared, and then they're trying to like be there for one another because they don't want to feel like Mike has this moment with Heather where he is like almost like punching her. He's like pushing her around, and it like cuts to the next thing, and he's like, "I'm so sorry, are you okay?" Like this, and you can see that these are good people. They're just put in a terrible situation, so it's making them lash out irrationally, and that is very realistic. I don't know, like, the characters are so believable in this. There's so many movies where you watch it and people just blow things so out of proportion, or they don't act scared enough. Or I just think that their breakdown, the way they handle this, seems very realistic to me. It seems like people who are trying so hard to keep it together, to keep their humanity, to keep all that kind of stuff. But they're scared and they don't know what to do, and they don't really know the people around them. And I don't know. I really like that about the movie. And they hear these big sounds at night, and they're like, yeah, I already said this though, rocks being thrown around. And then, as I talked about earlier with the 7 stones around them, formations or whatever, they wake up after they hear a bunch of shit, and there is 3 rock formations sitting right outside their tent, obviously implying their imminent demise. That's their 3 graves that they put out there, which of course would scare the shit out of you. These are not your woods. You're not. It's funny watching these things though, because we are so soft. We don't know how to survive for shit. Like, what we consider camping now, like, people are like, oh my God, I'm lost in the woods. I'm gonna fucking die out here. I don't know what to do. Like, that's how people lived all day, every day, their entire lives once upon a time. Like, that's just how you lived. For thousands and thousands of years, that's how people lived. So I find it funny now that, like, somebody gets lost in the woods and they're like, we're fucked. And that's what happens. Within 8-10 days, they come out there and they find their bodies. They're dead. We don't survive without the amenities of, you know, society and all the creature comforts of home. Like, we don't know how to fend for ourselves. There are some people that do, obviously, but the majority of us, the power goes out, man. You guys better start taking survival classes. I'm going to sign up for them. I'm going to take my kids out and do those, because you never know when you're going to need that shit. And this is one of those movies that, like, reinforces that in me. Like, I gotta learn how to survive out in the wilderness just in case. Just in case anything. Just in case this kind of shit happens. Not the Blair Witch, obviously, but getting lost in the woods. You don't want to fucking be that person who dies. I had a friend who got lost in the woods. She almost died. Anyway. And Heather is so dedicated to this project. Like, no matter what. And I like that scene when, like, because a lot of people are like, well, why is she still filming? Why is she still filming? And I think she really illustrates why she's still filming very well. Like, they're in her face, like, what the fuck? And she's like, it's all I have left. And the way she delivers that line and all that is really good, really solid acting on her part. But I get that. Like, she doesn't want this all to be for nothing. Like, this is happening. I want to be out here for a reason. I'm going to at least capture this on film at the very least. Like, I'm out here near dying right now. Maybe we'll get out of this, and I'm going to document this. Like, I brought us out here for this. This is Heather's project. She says it outright in the film. Like, this was my idea, this was my project, whatever. She's not giving up on this thing. Like, and it keeps her mind focused on something. She needs this to get through. She needs to continue to film because that's just what Josh says to her when he's looking through. He's like, I get it. Like, I get it. It's not reality when you look through this lens. And that's how she's kind of living through the camera so she doesn't have to deal with the problems on her own. And because she doesn't want this to all be for nothing. So it all makes sense to me on why they continue to keep filming. And then towards the end, they need the cameras for the light. They didn't have to press record, but at the same time, as I said, she's just... And they needed to have a movie, so they had to film. But I think it's well addressed here, and I think it does make sense of why they are filming, which I do appreciate in movies like this, because that's like everyone's question. Josh kicking the map in the creep. I already mentioned this, but like the fact that he lets Heather take the fall for this at first and then makes a big joke of it earlier, because he's like, you seriously don't have it? And it's like, you son of a bitch. You stole this map and kicked it in the fucking creek. You piece of shit. And then he laughs about it like it's no big fucking joke. What a dick. That's such a dick move. But they kind of make up later, and he's losing his shit there. Then they find the Blair Witch Stickmen, which obviously is super iconic to the franchise. The Blair Witch symbol here, which is kind of like the symbol of the franchise. That moment right there. And I'm guessing, they didn't know that stuff was going to be out there, and they saw it, and it's just kind of crude sculptures or artwork. The big ones, like these, are covered in fur, like the Blair Witch, supposedly, by Mary Brown's testament. So I thought that was interesting that they covered some of them in fur. I would be curious on how many there were out there. We never really got a count. But there's more than one furry one, so I don't know what that's implying. I don't know if that's supposed to be the Blair Witch, but there is one big furry one, so I don't know. Maybe the big furry one is the Woods Blair Witch, and then the smaller furry one is Ellie Kedward? I don't know. Now I'm just going for broke here. And then they hear a noise outside of the tent, which is like a baby crying, and then it gets hit, and they run out, and Heather is yelling, fucking like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? There was actually somebody out there, like they dressed up in some costume or whatever, and were like, but they didn't film them. Like, I guess they tried to get it on film or whatever, and they didn't capture it on film. So there was somebody that we were supposed to actually see a figure out there, but Heather and them were so scared and running so fast they didn't actually catch any of it on film. I thought that was pretty funny to hear about. So this movie is just like one take. It wasn't like they went back, because it's kind of like when they film those reveals at the end of reality TV shows. I've talked to people who go on those things, and they said, yeah, a lot of it's staged, a lot of it's redone, a lot of this and that, but when it gets to the end, like for the big reveal of who wins, you only get one chance, because that reaction has to be realistic. And this whole movie's basically like that. They shook the tent, and that's real fear that you hear them screaming, because they don't know what the fuck is going on. It's late at night. They're running through the woods, and they didn't capture the shot. They didn't capture the shot. This is no redos. There's no cut, roll back, like do it again, nothing. Yeah, the fighting and then apologizing, I like that. I jump all over the place, I don't know. Oh, another thing something that really irritates me about them, but Mike in general, is he keeps talking about how they're following them, and how the fuck could they have found them, and this is insane, and this is so bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're yelling every 5 fucking minutes. You're singing songs at the top of your lungs. You're yelling help. You're yelling fucking, you gotta be kidding me, and all this stuff. And it's like, really? You can't figure out how could someone not be following you? You are literally leaving vocal breadcrumbs everywhere you go by yelling. It irritates the shit out of me. You think someone's following you, you get real quiet. And they're walking in circles, which would be terrifying. That scene where Josh is yelling at her, that's your motivation. Man, Heather is just an emotional wreck. That's when they're all losing it. There's nothing, they're all out of their minds in that moment. And then, yeah, they wake up after Josh says that the only thing he wants is his mom's mashed potatoes and some pussy. I think he says like, I can't remember his exact wording, but he wants to get laid. Some ass, I think is what he says. And instead, he gets taken by the Blair Witch and tortured, and has his teeth pulled out, and he's kept alive for days to be tortured to lure his friend. So it ain't mashed potatoes, but he definitely got fucked. And then, yeah, so they hear Josh out there yelling, and then they wake up the next day, and there's a thing out there, and they decide not to open it, but then Heather comes back and opens it up, and they find a piece of Josh's shirt, and inside that shirt is bloody teeth and hair, and it's all matted together, and it's all gooey, and she screams, she freaks out, and she doesn't tell Mike. She chooses not to tell Mike. She's like, oh no, I can't tell this guy what's going on here. And yeah, then the infamous scene happens, the apology. Then they find the house, and Josh is inside that house yelling, and there's kids' handprints all over the walls. And then, yeah, I mean, could you imagine how scared you'd be in this moment, finding that house and then going into that basement? No fucking way, man. No fucking way. Middle of the woods. Although, I don't know, you're so scared by that point. You've dealt with so much and whatever. You're hearing this guy yelling. I guess you would, but could you imagine going into that basement and the attic in that house? Any of it. In that, anything. Oh my God. So fucking scary. And then Mike in the corner, as I said, I wasn't a big fan of that, but it goes with the story. Rustin Parr putting the kid in the corner and all that, so whatever. And then in the movie, like when I went and saw this in the theater, like it ended and it was just black. And then the movie, like the lights came up and everyone was just sitting in the theater. There was so many people who believed this, and they were just fucking shaking, and no one got up from their seats. Like some people did, but most people were just sitting there like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And like in the DVD now, there's credits. But when I saw this in theater, no credits. Just black screen, get out, have fun sleeping tonight. So anyways, all right. I also watched Book of Shadows tonight, so let's get on over to that.